Hello everyone, today I am going to tell you about the Hibernate. What is ORM and what is Hibernate? ORM is the object relational model which helps to save the data into database. Generally a real-time application is in three layers: one persistency layer, one presentation layer, and second one is business or service layer. And third one is persistence layer. Hibernate deals with the persistency layer. Okay, these are the layers in generally real-time applications. Layers in real-time application, there are different ORM tools. ORM means object relational model. Object relational model means they are retrieving data from database in terms of object and saving data into database in terms of object. This is called object relational model. There are different types of object relational models are there. In that, Hibernate is the one most famous tool, and there are different types: TOPLINK, MYBATIS, JDBC, Hibernate, ORMLITE. There are different types of Hibernate ORM tools are there, but all will follow the ORM principles. Okay, we already have JDBC. Why we go for the ORM tool? Our firstmost question is here. Why we have JDBC to store the data in form of JDBC? Why we have to go for the ORM tool? JDBC stores the data in form of values. In Java, we deal everything in form of the object. Hibernate will store data into database and retrieve data from the database in terms of objects. That's why we go for the Hibernate. For example, I will show you. Okay, Hibernate. Very good. Okay, if you in case of JDBC, presentation layer will give object, business layer will have object from the presentation layer, and it is into persistency layer object, but into database we have to store in values. Into database we have to store in values, and we have to retrieve from the database in terms of values, and we have to convert explicitly here values into object. And again we have to send object to business layer to presentation layer. Here see this query: execute update, insert into EMP values, ename, ANO, and ESAL. It is in terms of values only. We are not storing in terms of the object. So in case of Hibernate, if you see, values is explicitly converted into object by ORM tool. ORM tool main thing is to take the object from the application and convert the object to save the object into database. Internally, Hibernate uses application gives object will be taken by Hibernate. It explicitly converts object into values to object, and object is saved into database. Here Hibernate main work is storing the object internally Hibernate uses the internally Hibernate uses internally it uses the JDBC only. Hibernate is the framework. Hibernate is a framework who JDBC stores data. We already have JDBC, but JDBC stores data in form of values. But here Java, everything is in form of object. Just now we have seen the object. Okay, yeah, everything is in form of object. We have to storage also. We have to a separate mechanism for the storing the object into database. So we go for the Hibernate. Next, Hibernate query is database dependent. In case of Hibernate queries is database dependent. How? I will show you. Suppose if you take an EMP table, you can here in MySQL, its query will be create table. Suppose a table I am going to create table student SID in integer and SName character. In case of Oracle, create table student SID number and SName where character. Means one query differ from another query, so database will change from one query to another query. One database to another database query will be changed. But in case of Hibernate, there is no database dependency because Hibernate have separate query language called HQL, Hibernate query language, HQL. Okay, code. In case of JDBC, we have to JDBC all exceptions are in JDBC all exceptions are in all exceptions checked exceptions. We have to in JDBC all exceptions are checked exceptions. Okay, in JDBC all exceptions are checked exceptions. We have to keep the code in try-catch blocks, otherwise we will get exceptions. So we have to the code will be lengthy in JDBC, but in case of Hibernate, no need of try-catch because it is exceptions are Hibernate exceptions are unchecked exceptions. In case of table structure remains the same. If we change the table structure, we can't save data by JDBC. But in case of Hibernate, we don't bother about the data table. In case of Hibernate, we don't bother about the table. Okay, we don't bother about the table. Next, Hibernate JDBC saved in terms of values. So JDBC stores in terms of values. Table structure JDBC stores in terms of values. So database number of hits to database this will be increases due to which the burden on database. This is the difference. Why we work? There are many reasons are there. We will discuss in next tutorials. These are the main differences between JDBC and Hibernate. What is a framework? Framework is a pre-built code. We repeatedly use code will be in terms of boilerplate code. boiler BIOLAR boilerplate logic. Boilerplate logic means code is already built in the code is in boilerplate logic. I mean boilerplate logic means pre-built code. Repeatedly used code will be stored in is built by the vendors, Hibernate vendors, and the code is coding standards will be high because the framework vendors are giving by giving a boilerplate logic to us. Developer burden will be reduced. A project can be delivered in time to the client fastly in time, and project can be maintained easily. It is the uses of the framework. The framework generally frameworks are two types. One is invasive, second one is non-invasive. What is non-invasive? Non-invasive means we don't need to keep implement or extends to Hibernate. Here it is not necessary. It is no need. And benefits. Hibernate has separate query language which is called HQL. The queries are database dependent. Where the queries are database, one database to another database, the queries will change. In case of Hibernate, there is a separate language called HQL language. So we no need to bother about the database. Okay, either it is the Oracle or MySQL, some Derby. We don't need to bother. Caching means Hibernate don't store data directly into database. First, it will store 11.1 cache and it won't retrieve from the data from database. First, it will store 11.1 cache. There are two levels of caches there. So first, it will store 11.1 cache or level 2 cache. Now, if you retrieve data a object, if you want to get an object to Hibernate, it will check first level 1 cache. If it exists, it will give to the user. If it exists, it will give to the user. Next, it will check level 2 cache. Level 2 cache, if it will exist, it will give to the object to the user. Then after failing two level of caches, it will go to database. So number of hits to database will be reduced. Lazy loading means Hibernate won't load the object directly to the database. It will create a fake object with given ID. So the database here also database will be less criteria and lacking unchecked exception. Hibernate has the unchecked exception, lacking special features given for the locking, and criteria API very important. It will helps to criteria will help because fast retrieving data. For example, in case of criteria we will discuss in later sessions. Locking and unchecked exception we will discuss in later sessions.